How's everybody doing? It's Captain Brian Brown with FishingHype.com, Fishing Hype Guide Service, and I am here this week with your KentuckyLake.com tip of the week, and it revolves around jigs. A lot of guys catch a lot of fish on jigs. If you ask them what their biggest fish they normally catch of the year, what bait that would be, a lot of them would say a jig. It just tends to catch a better average size fish. They can be a little trickier to feel and detect the bite on than a worm and Carolina rig and stuff, and you may not get as many bites, but they tend to be bigger bites. So I'm just going to go over just a quick overview to maybe help you choose what jig you should be using and maybe get an idea what jigs people are talking about when they say they're catching a fish on a jig. There's definitely different models, sizes, and different uses for them. And a lot of them are technique specific, so we will start with a few of them. Kind of start with like spring, summer, or the spring with what most guys will be doing. You're going to be, you're flipping bushes and everything. So you're going to have a flipping jig. A lot of guys down south in Florida and stuff are flipping mats and that sort of thing. What you're looking for in a jig there is a jig with with more of a pointed, more of a cone head, something that can slide in and out of the cover really easy. Here's a couple of Outcast tackle. In fact, this is their double weed guard jig that they come up with last year. You want a pointed head and a good decent brush guard. Like I said, this one's got two: a weed guard, brush guard, just a hook guard more or less. Because if you're in the south and you're fishing grass or whatever, Okeechobee, or maybe up north fishing grass, it's a weed guard. You're here on Kentucky and Barkley Lakes, or maybe you're on Table Rock or Lake Fork, it's going to be a brush guard because they've got wood. But the other thing you're looking for is a good stout hook. You don't want a real light wire hook here, because when you're flipping at short distance, you're not on a real long cast where you're trying to maybe get a hook into a fish's mouth on a long cast where you might want a thinner diameter hook. Here you're normally using a big heavy fluorocarbon, or you're using a braid, and you got no more than maybe 15 feet of line out, and so a big strong hook to pull those fish up out of the heavy cover. But that's going to be your flipping type jigs there. Usually something heavy, anywhere from half, 3/4 all the way up to 1.5 ounce style. Then you're going to have a casting jigs that are kind of similar, probably in head shape to a point. Some will have basically the same style head, kind of a pointy head, bullet nose type deal. Others are going to have a little bit wider head with, this one here's, I think this is their juice jig that's got the flat bottom on it. These can be used for casting. This also makes a great wood jig for the simple fact that it's rounded. It will come up and roll around that wood and not get, if you get one that's got too much of a point on it, like this RT jig, what'll happen here is, or even like they're flipping the RTX jig, you get too much of a nose on there, and what'll happen if you get stuck to a Y of a branch, this wants to peg into it and get stuck into it. So when you come to you get more of a wood jig or an Arky style jig, or something that's a little bit fatter head, that's got a little bit of wide to it to kind of help push it through the brush, but it's got a little wider head to help deflect around wood, and this will definitely help with skipping. That flat base there, when you want to skip docks or something to pitch up underneath, it'll hit and it'll skip across that flat head. So those are your casting jigs. You're also going to have a finesse jig. Your finesse jigs are going to be a little bit lighter, generally a little lighter wire. Many of them have a ball head, light wire. This one here's got more of a flat head on it, where it'll stand up. Some of the round heads, they're lightweight, got a light, but what'll happen is you've got that round head and it'll roll over. A lot of fish have been caught on these, but they tried to cure that by putting a flat spot on there so it'll stand up a little bit more. Normally their skirts are going to be trimmed. You can see where they've got, most finesse jigs will have a spider skirt, or whatever you want to call it, up here, in a shorter skirt here, and a smaller trailer that you'll use on these. Normally in the spring or clear water, when you want to use a bait that's going to be more like about a 3/8 ounce or less. You're looking at 3/16, quarter, maybe 3/8 would actually be a heavy one when it comes to a finesse jig. Then you're going to have your football heads, and a lot of times you can use these in the same spot that you're using the casting jigs. They tend to be a little bit heavier. You can get them with a weed guard or brush guard, whatever, or without. And it all depends on the type of cover you're fishing. You can throw them with, you can see this one doesn't have the collar for keeping a skirt on it. And some of these, what they'll wind up doing is just with a double weed, they'll put like a twin tail grub or a spider grub and just slide that on there, no weed guard, nothing. And most of these are going to be 1/2 ounce, 3/4, 1 ounce, probably about the biggest one you're going to find. And they're more for true bottom contact and for like here on Lake Barkley and Kentucky Lakes for shell bed fishing and ledge fishing. Throw it out, you know, you're going to be fishing deeper water, so it's a heavier bait. It's going to have good bottom contact and drag along the bottom. I really like these for the simple fact a lot of football heads they look like a football, you know, they're wide going across the side here, and they're normally all the way around, and they slide across the bottom pretty good. They don't get hung up in the rocks as well. The one thing I like about the Outcaster one here is it's got a flat spot, so as it's being pulled along the bottom, it'll actually stand up when it hits something, or just as it's dragging, it'll stand up, and you got a crayfish trailer on there, and that's, you know, what it's going to look like. It's going to look like crayfish in its fighting position. So that's what the football heads will do for you. Kind of the same realm as the casting. A lot of guys are going to even lighter weight football heads to do their casting with, just because it keeps contact with the bottom better. Then you're going to have your swim jigs and moving type style jigs. So I know everybody's seen like the bladed jigs. You know, like a chatterbait was the big one that came out. You know, that's got the blade on it. And then you've got also like the Pro Swim Jig here. Generally got a 60-degree nose cone, you know, nose on here. Made a lot of times for throwing around grass and shallow vegetation. This will come through it so easy. It's kind of takes place of throwing it with a spinnerbait. A spinnerbait's got all the flash and everything coming. This is almost like it's like throwing a rattling bait versus a non-rattling crankbait. You got all that flash and stuff with a spinnerbait. You can take that swim jig, throw right in behind where guys have been throwing a spinnerbait or maybe even a square bill. Throw this in behind them and put you can use any kind of trailer on here. I mean, like on here we just got the twin tail trailer on this, but you can put a swim bait swim bait on here for a trailer on either one of them. You can throw a twin tail grub, crayfish, you know, with the 2 legs, something that gives it some action. Man, there's just endless amount of different things you can put on either one of these as a trailer. But it's just a good one for throwing behind where guys have been throwing a lot of spinnerbaits and stuff. You can throw it into a lot of areas, a lot of cover that a spinnerbait or a square bill can't get into and get it back. And those are your swim jigs there. And then of course you always got, like, you know, some of the specialty jigs. We won't get into all the jig heads, but just right now for the jigs, and I thought I had another one out. They have, you know, you just got different specialty jigs that, like the hair jig. We've got a 401k craw jig that actually has a crayfish trailer to it, or a craw tail that makes it, you can dig it in the bottom, almost like a crankbait, or when you stroke it, it'll do different things on the fall. But those are your basic jigs that you're looking for. You know, you got your flipping, you basically got your flipping jigs, you've got your casting jigs, you've got your football jigs, your finesse jigs, and some sort of a swimming jig. So, and then you got your specialty ones, which there's, you know, a bunch of them out there for specialty situations. But those are going to be, and, you know, if you hear people talking about they're fishing a jig, you might want to kind of key them in as to, well, you flipping the jig, or you casting it on a break line, or you know, throwing it over to a shell bed, or you know, you're throwing it in weeds. You might want to find it, because a guy could be doing a lot of different things. You could have 3 guys catching them on jigs, and they're all doing it differently. But hopefully this will give you a good overview of the different jigs that are out there. Again, if you guys got any questions on the different types, or what to use them for, or what have you, or want a guide trip and go out and see how to use each one in a specific situation, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. And we can go out and show you. But hopefully this will help you when you're at the stores and you're looking to buy a jig, or looking at what type of jigs to buy. Give you a little help on picking out the right ones. But this is Brian Brown with your FishingHype.com and Fishing Hype Guide Service, along with your FishingKentuckyLake.com tip of the week.